Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week ahead. This week is perhaps one of the bigger weeks of the year. Uh, you know, and when I speak about, bigger weeks, obviously we're all moving through an evolutionary journey, and the transits are just reflecting to us changes that are happening, shifts, evolution, movements within our collective and individual identity, expression, how we live, how we show up in the world. As above, so below. It's not as above creates below, it's as above, so below, as in it reflects below, it reflects what's happening. And what's happening this week is such a powerful culmination of energies, of cycles in it's both like the simultaneous closing of a door and a cycle and a chapter with both Mars and Venus this week. While we're in this opening phase of the new moon, we now have the moon in Aries, which is a very strong movement moon. It's a lunar part of the cycle that is ruled by Mars. And Mars is at the 29th degree of Capricorn. With ever, a planetary transit at an anaretic degree, we have the full culmination of that energy in that degree. And Mars, being the lower octave of Pluto from the evolutionary perspective, is really pushing us with our desire, our will, our conditioning, our drive, all the things, all the forces of motion and momentum from all the conditioning that has come before are literally pushing up against the evolutionary doorway of Pluto, which is now in Aquarius. This conjunction of Mars Pluto is the first of its kind, and it also marks the last of its kind, meaning it won't be the last Mars, Pluto, and Aquarius conjunction because Mars's cycle comes around every, 2.5 years. So Mars and Pluto will meet together again in about 2.5 years from now in Aquarius. But Mars will never again conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. And that's an important cycle completion. And we have all the energy, all the angst, all the drive, all the will and determination of those years of Mars, Pluto in Capricorn. And you could look back and see, well, when was the last time that Mars and Pluto conjoined one another? It was actually, there was a couple of serieses, and I did a whole class series on this called Love Evolution last year. You can watch all the free Love Evolution videos on my channel. Love Evolution was based on this Mars-Venus conjunction and the Mars-Venus-Pluto cycle. And I taught this for the last 3 years, basically going through and really following how their cycles together were impacting our evolution in relationships and helping us ultimately to evolve beyond particularly conditioned forms of being in relationship. We worked through relationship dynamics from family patterning, from childhood. We worked in relationship to our desires, and the bottom line that our evolution is moving us towards a greater connection to love, to source. So with this Mars here leading the way, and Mars is the slower moving planet relative to Venus, but it's the faster moving planet relative to Pluto. So Mars in just a day's time here is going to culminate into the sign of Aquarius. And you can see Pluto's just here at 0 degrees 45 seconds. So it doesn't take long for Mars to catch up to Pluto. And by that time, the moon is in Aries in a square to Venus, just on the other side of a conjunction to Chiron. So just in the next 24 hours, we have a huge like whoosh of energy, pushing all of the conditioning out of the Capricorn signs into Aquarius. We have a huge push of energy, kind of liberating core wounds, patterns, dynamics, all relative to this North Node in Aries, which really, if we're looking at the push-pull dynamic of our desire to separate and our desire to be together, of our individual will and our, togetherness will, our collective will, there's a lot of strong energy moving in the momentum of separation. There's a lot of strong energy moving in the momentum of severing and cutting ties. And while often that severing can be a liberation that was a necessary culmination, it can, in a certain way, be an undermining or a challenge of our past conditioning, triggering us into a state of fight or flight. And that's where I think we have to be careful, because this kind of transit can be tricky, right? This kind of strong Mars energy, very triggering. I woke up this morning with like I'm in a group thread, and one of the messages was, I need someone who can just be mean because I've got my Mars conjunct Pluto. And it really pointed for me to this energy of like, yeah, I need someone who can just stand up to me. Like, give me someone who can just like, meh, 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 because if we want to go toe to toe, what do we want to do? We actually want to move that energy. And if we're gonna move that energy in a good way, it's got to be a Capricorn way. It's got to be about really recognizing, okay, the mountain that I'm trying to climb is evolution. And the evolutionary journey has said, oh, you've got all this shit on your back. You've been carrying all this weight. You've been carrying all this resentment, pardon my, language. And with all this weight on your back from your family and your ancestors, and everybody's hurt and everybody's struggles and everybody's suffering, you're not going to get very far. But that Mars energy wants to throw off and say, you know what? F you, I'm out of here. I'm done with this. I'm going to bleep my language for the YouTube, and but you know what I mean, right? It's got that angst. It's got that energy of like, yeah, we're done with this. And then on the other side is Pluto waiting for that energy, saying, come on, bring it on. What do you want to do? You want to fight? How do you want to fight? You want to fight in community? Do you want to fight humanity? Are you fighting for humanity? Because fighting for humanity's survival ultimately means we all got to evolve. We have to see our interconnectedness. We have to see that I can't like pull this string and not have it tug over here and affect everyone else down the line. That there's no human being on this planet who's exempt from the relational quality of life itself to life itself. And that's where we've kind of forgotten ourselves, where we've been lost in a fog of living, of thinking like, oh yeah, I'm separate from you. And in my separateness, I can do what I want to do. And there's this community that I have been aware of for many, many years and studied a lot with. And one of the things they say is you can do what you want to do if you know what it is, what you do. If you know what you do. And to me, that's about saying, oh, I have to know the impact, the harm, the consequence of whatever I do, right? And whatever we do, it has an impact. Sometimes we're aware of that impact, but with Mars, impulses can be instinctual. We can be unaware of that impact. And Mars in Capricorn, it can be coming from conditioned responses, right? If we were conditioned when we were a child to suppress our anger or to retaliate or to feel, like we have a battle to fight because the world is against us, that conditioning will run strong until we have liberated from that conditioning. If we have felt like there isn't anywhere in humanity that I truly belong, I don't have a sense of knowing myself in a place, right? If maybe our ancestors had to immigrate or migrate or leave or were, you know, the effects of colonialism on our culture are infinite and often unspoken realities of the way capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy have readily oppressed from a systems perspective, right? But that system of oppression deeply affects every single individual on this planet. Those actively participating in it, those benefiting from it financially or otherwise, and those hurt by it, wounded by it. Just like the system of war, right? The system of war or the system of violence actively affects every human being on this planet, whether we're participating in it as someone who's contributing to war and violence on the planet, or whether we are healing from it, whether we are a peacemaker, whether we are a helper. There's no part of that spectrum of peace and war, of individual identity and collective identity, that we aren't all unified by. That's why I can look at this chart of the moment. This is the present moment here right now, and see everything and everyone under the sun that is on this planetary journey. But I'm looking at it from my perspective, from the lens and the present moment of here and now, which actually isn't here and now here's here and now in Sonoma. There we go. This is where I'm reporting from today, back at home in this home studio. And so this 29-degree Mars is critical. It's critical to our evolutionary journey. What it's culminating will never happen again, right? We're never going to have another Mars Pluto conjunction in Capricorn in our lifetimes. It's just not going to happen, folks. But we will have this new phase of Mars and Pluto in Aquarius. And then over the next 20 years, we're going to progressively, every 2.5 years or so, see another installment of that new phase of evolution. But it's kicking off tomorrow, right? And it's kicking off with this Aries moon. So there's such strong Martian energy that's moving with this. We're going to have to be careful of where accidents and challenges and breakdowns and it's like you're either having a breakdown in relationship or a breakthrough. It's so funny. I bought all these little rosaries while I was on my trip, the Mother Mary rosary, and they're all breaking. All the chains are breaking. They're all, for whatever reason, disconnecting. I'm having to reconnect them, right? It's such an interesting metaphor for our lives right now, because so many different things in relationship can be on this sort of verge of breakdown. And that verge of breakdown is actually the very tender edge of breakthrough, right? Because when a relationship has a breakdown, and I'm speaking to this also with Venus here in Capricorn, she's following Mars in just a few days here and making that same conjunction. She's going to finish her cycle in Capricorn at 29 degrees. And interestingly enough, so see this correlation. When Mars finishes Capricorn with Pluto, the moon is in Aries, which is a Mars-ruled sign. When Venus finishes Capricorn and conjoins with Pluto, the moon is in Taurus, which is a Venus ruled sign. So we have a very clear distinction from the moon reflecting to us. Oh, yeah. So the evolution, these first 2 days, is about Mars evolution, movement, energy, force, desire, will. Mars is instinctually driving us towards something, towards a new beginning and a brand new cycle. And then that follows with the moon pointing us also in this same reflection that it's about the feminine, Venus, but not just our physical beauty. Taurus relates to all things sensual and earthly. It's an earth sign. So that can be money, finances, our resources, our sense of physical possessions, what we embody. So much of what we are being called to from the evolutionary movement of these two planets towards Pluto, with the moon just really chasing the tail of the dragon there, right? The moon conjoins with Chiron when it's in the Mars phase, and then it conjoins with Jupiter when it's in the Venus phase. It's really saying, okay, if we want to expand beyond the places where we've been wounded, where we've been hurt, where we've been struggling, if we want to actually kind of get to the top of that mountain and say and look around, and take a big, deep breath of fresh air and go, whoa, man, I can see all of humanity. I can see all of the structures and the systems down below. I can see all the ways that I've cooperated with the destruction and the creation. I can see all the ways in which I'm a part of the kin of what makes us friend to one another. And I can also see all the ways I can create enemy in my mind. Enemy. You're not my enemy. They are not the enemy. Anyone, right? We're talking about the first house, seventh house axis. The seventh house, traditionally in astrology, is the house of marriage. But why is that? Because it's the house of contracts. And marriage in colonial times was a contract of a woman being sold by her father to a man. It was an indebtedness of slavery. It was also a wealth building tool, Taurus, right? It built resources for families with great wealth. More wealth would be amassed. With families where they could have children, more land, more, right? It created more and more and more bounty. The more we actually are in a state of togetherness as family, and the more connected we are, the more we give and share our resources and develop our relationship to the earth, the more blessings abound in our life. These were sort of natural things that were, and in colonial times, as they developed these laws, some of the basic laws that pertained to race were built in 1776 around slavery and prohibiting white and black slaves from marrying. This is in the United States. And Robin DiAngelo, who's an amazing educator on, race, and she has a book. She's just so if you don't, I mean, if you want to dismantle racism in your mind and and especially as a you know not a person of color, right? She's the person to do the work with, for sure. If you haven't read her book, it's incredible. And her work is incredible. So anyway, I digress a little bit, but right, these are the factions of the last 250-year cycle, right? We're going back to the French American Revolution. We're going back to the early founding of the United States, right? This is all that time. end of Pluto in Capricorn, beginning of Pluto in Aquarius. And all of these personal planets made aspects to Pluto in that time as well. So I'm bringing forward the basic structural evolutionary things: capitalism, colonialism, racism, right? All the isms, that disease, right? If you think about it, all the isms are the things that make us sick, right? Colonialism, capitalism, racism, alcoholism. You can add any ism. Most of these isms are going to be things that are ailing humanity. Ailing humanity because they all have some form of separating us both from ourselves, from our individual identity, from our uniqueness, from our interconnectedness. And so we're really healing on the bottom line of this evolutionary journey is all the isms, right? The isms are coming to the surface. And then in our own individual life, the isms take place in relationship, and they take place in our marriages, and they take place in our work situations, our colleagues, and our environments. And when they talk about like toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, these are just effects of the isms, really. They're not real things. People aren't necessarily toxic people. They're just isms that are all over us. And really, a lot of our isms are just undiagnosed isms that come from these systemic, deeper, collective issues. But we have such power as individuals and as a collective to shift both our consciousness around these isms and our relationship to these isms. And that ultimately changes everything. And I think it's pretty clear too, even when we look at the chart, we've got Hygeia, the goddess of health and well-being, traveling with Saturn. A lot of work around forgiveness, compassion, but this is about healing like the places where we're struggling with deep physical pain and limitations, the limitations of pain, the limitations of our suffering. And then we've got Churi Klo, who's the wife of Chiron, traveling with Mercury. And I think a big part of what heals our isms is just the mindset, just the bringing out, expressing the truth, being ourselves, being authentic, right? This is me being authentic, talking about these things. And I'm not talking about them from the place of like, oh, I've got it all figured out. I'm like, I healed all my isms. I'm talking to you about it from the place of like, man, I got my knees on the ground most of the time, and I'm praying, one, for help, two, to get out of my own way, and three, to know what is really true and to continue to come back to the core journey of my soul every day. That's an ongoing process while doing the laundry, cleaning up, my house, trying to feed my kids, trying to make a living and do right. And why do we have to make a living? Because we're in a system of the isms, right? The ism system is what the way God created us. You were born into this world freely. There wasn't a price tag on your foot that said like you're going to cost $250,000, or there wasn't a value placed on your life. You were born freely. The way that nature expresses itself, it gives freely. It's only capitalism that has capitalized on those free resources. They just haven't figured out how to bottle oxygen. But guarantee, I mean, maybe they have. Somebody, like correct me if they do sell oxygen. They do. That's funny. They probably do sell oxygen. Anyway, there's your laughs for the day. But you get it, right? Like all of these things, when we get to the root of where they're coming from, then we can start to tease apart. Okay, what's my part? What do I get to work on in my own life? What's my soul calling? Knowing our soul calling is a it's a really core part of this, because it allows for us to do the North Node work, right? That is having the courage, right, to liberate ourselves from these isms. It is having the perspective about our life and our wounds in particular that takes a personal level of responsibility to correcting them. It is also taking to our relationships and, you know, knowing where we stand on our side of the street and how we work together and how we are connected. Like, one of the most powerful recognitions in my relationship has been the reality that we can't really separate ourselves from one another without causing harm. Right. And so much harm is done in our world, where in families with situations of divorce and separation, and it's pervasive. The way that we feel the only way out of those situations is fear, anger, hurt, and sometimes, that is what happens, partly because of the reality that human beings have free will, and we're not all at the same stage and pace of evolution, and we don't always choose the path of healing. We don't always choose the path of togetherness. Sometimes we can't even see that as a choice for ourselves, and we have to kind of give grace to the fact that if someone is doing something, like the many, many times in my life where I've chosen separation, and it's really, really, it's like it's hurt me so deeply on the inside and outside. It's caused harm. Oh, here I want to cry when I think about this. Wow. And it's like, even with self-awareness in my own life, I have not been able to trump the energy of the fear or the anger, and it's like, on some level, there does feel to be a little bit of powerlessness in that. I can recognize where some of that was conditioning. I can recognize where some of it was desire, my desire to be separate. My desire, was stronger in that moment than my desire to be healed. And that's just true. We all do that from time to time, where we don't even maybe recognize that we're doing that, or we do recognize it, but it isn't something that we're able to stop in that moment. And those have been, wow, some of the hardest moments of grief and the biggest challenges in my life to be able to overcome. Right. But that the practice of forgiveness, whether it's self-forgiveness or forgiveness of another, the recognition of our interconnection, I think that always points us to more options, more possibilities. Our interconnectedness ultimately leads to so many more possibilities in how we can live, how we can be together, what we can do together, how we can create together. Like, there's so many more possibilities than what we've been exposed to. And a part of the limitation of possibilities is that people benefit from you not thinking that there's a lot of possibilities. It's like if you've only worked a 9 to 5 job your whole life, and somebody has benefited from you not knowing that there's another possibility, that you could work 3 days a week and make the same amount of money, that you could run your own business and set your own schedule and make the same amount of money. But someone for their whole life has benefited from you not seeing more possibilities than what is in the actual scope of reality. Then when you liberate from that and you decide, oh no, I want to do something different with my life, that's going to come as a form of separation to that boss or that job or that situation, you know? And I remember when I first liberated myself from my 9 to 5 job working at the bank, for years, I would still have nightmares about having to go back to the bank. And even lately, I've been thinking about it like, well, if I don't make it as an astrologer, that thought makes me sad. I'll figure out something like maybe I should get a day job. Anyway, I digress a little bit, just revealing some of my own inner evolution. But that's the whole thing, is that now that I have the taste of what it's like to be free, to be myself, and I continue to want to push the edge of my own evolution to be more and more of myself every day, it's kind of hard to go back to, anything other than that. But I know that when I was in it, I know that when I was doing that work every day, I didn't really think that there was any other possibility for me until one day when I let my longings, I let my dreams, I let my desires, and I let my vision, you know, the thought that I could create a different life for myself take over what I was doing and do things that I didn't think that I could do. And so here I am with you know. And the rest is all grace, of course, and the path unfolding itself as I continue to follow. And sometimes we have to follow things in a kind of blind state. All of these planets as they come through this week, making this new phase conjunction. Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about the new phase conjunction in his Pluto 2 book, and I'll just read to you about this because I think it's a really important, um, you know, really important thing to keep in mind. I think of the new phase as similar to that seed in the darkness. It doesn't necessarily come with a lot of like insight into what is going to be born out of this time. It doesn't come with a lot of clarity of like, here's who I am. I know myself. Let me just reveal that to you. I'm doing the best that I can to continue to reveal myself to you. The new phase correlates to a brand new evolutionary intention, right? An intention. We set new moon intentions. This phase is instinctual and yang. It correlates to the need to initiate a diversity of experiences, to take action in order to begin the actualization of the new intention. At the 0-degree conjunction, the planets unite in a function so that the new evolutionary purpose and cycle can begin in an instinctual way. Here we go. Instinctual, without any egocentric awareness. It's pure, unchecked expression. Random experiences will be initiated in order to begin the process of self-discovery in this new evolutionary phase. Self-discovery. And what are we discovering, right? So much of this strong Aquarius is activating its polarity, Leo. Creative actualization, joy, pleasure, it would be that square to Taurus, Scorpio, our deep, intimate connection, right? So if you have planets in this fixed axis, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, all of this is getting activated, especially over this month ahead. Big time initiations, but it's instinctual with the Mars. It's instinctual, and even the Venus, right? Our feeling, it's a power that's emerging from within that's before that part of your mind that says, wait, don't do that. Oh, don't say that. Oh, you're not, And that's a part of what helps us to liberate from conditioning, because if you don't think about it, then you do the thing that you need to do. And then you have the effect afterwards of course, whatever the consequence is of that action or whatever the creation is. Things are not all bad, right? Sometimes our instinctual actions actually create things. And sometimes they create miracles. Sometimes they create healing. Sometimes our instinctual actions create a new identity for ourselves. They create a new relationship, because instead of thinking about it, we extended towards our connection, our interconnection, and we actually opened to something that I think is beyond us, beyond our understanding. That's the Uranus element of this. And what's so fun about this week, I mean, like, if you didn't have also all of that happening, we've got, you know, we've got Mercury squaring Uranus. We'll have the moon conjunct Uranus. We'll have Venus and Mars moving to conjunct. You know, we're going to have the sun at the end of this week moving into Pisces. We've got the moon moving through Gemini, so we go from today, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and then we get a Cancer moon on Monday, Sunday night, Monday, you know, so it's a packed week with a lot of energy. And I picked a card. I did a little meditation before recording this, and I picked a card to help us for the week. This is from the Animal Apothecary deck by Kara Elizabeth. I really love her. She's got an awesome YouTube channel, and she's just really fun. And the card that I picked for this week is Shake, Heal, and Move On. Shake, release, heal, and move on. And I really think this is so cool for this Mars, Mars Pluto. And I'll just read you this last little part from what she says. Antelope's medicine is literally telling you to move. One powerful technique is to set an intention before and during your exercise routine, saying, for example, this movement is for me to let go of resistance, this resistance inside, and overcome my current obstacle. Like, imagine if when the thing is coming up, you start to move, right? But we don't have to instinctually move in towards a fight or an argument or we don't have to move in the same conditioned way. We could literally say, this movement is for me to let go. And with that moon kind of moving through the signs, leading us in the evolution through the emotional body, this is going to be a real key to this week. During your run, you would repeat this over and over again. I'm doing this. I'm moving through my obstacles. I'm dedicating this yoga practice to releasing my trauma and stepping into my power and falling deeply in love with myself and my life. Connecting intention with movement yields powerful results. So, my friends, it's a super powerful week. This week kicks off so much stuff. For me, it kicks off my Growing Together group, which is my monthly mentoring group. It's a small group circle for astrologers, healers, guides. You don't have to be an astrologer or an astrologer in training to be in this group. Really, what you have to be is someone committed to your own personal growth and bringing your gifts out into the world. Your gifts can be as an artist, as a teacher, as a poet, as a mom, as a whatever it is that you are in the world that is creating a better world for all of us. And we lean in together in this group to how we can really use the lens of astrology, the tools that I work with in my own personal practice, and the collective group field to evolve. It's $45 a month to join me in that group, and it includes access to my monthly new moon ceremony. We do small group work together once a month. We're kicking off this week. So if you would like to join me for that, you can sign up on my website. It's super fun and amazing, a super amazing group of people. I would love for you to join me. And I'm also, that's kind of the gateway into apprenticing with me and working together with me, is that those small group containers. Um, I have Rebirth coming up, which begins March 1st. And I'm really looking at this as an apprenticeship of the soul, right? If you're really called to do the core soul work this year to transform your life, your family, your relationships, all of it, your work in the world, like that's the container to be in with me. The purpose of a 9-month container is to give birth to the self. And it's broken down into 3 monthly segments, but we're working together. And Rebirth includes access to the Growing Together group. I hope that you love this video. I hope that you have a super awesome week ahead. If you give it a thumbs up, if you let me know like what you're excited about, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, if there was something in this that touched your heart, please do. I always really love your comments and I love to hear, and do you like the card pick? Is that fun for you? Um, it's fun for me. I certainly love it. And I am so grateful for you, grateful to be on this journey with you. Bye for now.